What is health? Put it down. It is energy. It is vitality. And I put with energy, everything in life becomes real and possible. Now, the big question, of course, is where does energy come from? Where does all energy come from in everything, whether it be plants or animals? Where does energy come from? That's right. It's made up in your cells. Cells are the factories. They are the building blocks of all life, plant and animal. Now, if we think about that, if cells are where energy happens, they're this little biochemical electrical factory. And you've got, to give you an idea, inside your body, 75 trillion cells in your body. 75 trillion. And all they are is life pulsating through you. You are nothing but cells. Every organ in your body, every bit of tissue is made up of nothing but cells. Cells are the basic building block. So think about this then. If you and I want to have lots of energy, we better make sure we take really good care of our what? Cells. The cells of our body must be nurtured. Health, life, and death starts, is created, and ends at the cellular level. That's where it all is. As your cells go, so do you go. So what you got to be thinking when you're thinking about health is, what is this going to do to my cells? Now think about what a cell is, the membrane of a cell. Think of this little factory. Is this a sensitive little device, yes or no? You better believe it. That's why we have all this exterior to cover us. And all these orifices have a series of filtering devices before anything can get into that bloodstream to make sure that you're protected. But a lot of us have learned that when we get ill, what we should do is inject foreign matter directly into our bloodstream, directly where cells are going to be impacted with no filtering device. And we wonder why we don't seem to get better long term. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we take care of those cells. So on page 7 at the top, the quality of our life, this is our core organizing principle for health. The quality of your life is the quality of the life of your what? Cells. So then the big question is, okay, Tony, so what do my cells need to not only survive, but to really thrive? The number one source of energy that cells use, they must have, is called oxygen. Health is energy. Energy is built at the cellular level. Cells must have oxygen. It is the number one source of energy on planet Earth, not food. Oxygen. When you are tired, the first thing you must do is get more oxygen to your system. How do they get you to go for 3 days and 3 nights through an insane number of hours, unbelievable intensity, and not be out of your mind with like your body feeling horrible and terrible and tired? How many felt pretty energized most this weekend long? Say aye. Aye. How do we do that? That's right. We were moving and we were breathing, but the movement was stimulating the flow of oxygen through your body. Whenever you have pain, you've been sitting a long time, it's because you don't have any blood flow. The blood flow isn't flowing, so you're not getting fresh oxygen as clearly or as much, and so you experience this thing called pain. Oxygen is the number one source. The second thing that cells need to thrive is nutrients. Nutrients. Not food, because many of you eat what you call food, doesn't have any nutrient left in it. Right? It's totally devitalized, and it doesn't give the cells anything. And here's the secret. Anything you put in your body must either be assimilated or eliminated. If your body can't assimilate it, it's giving it no nutrients. And if the body has to eliminate it, that requires a large amount of what? Anybody know? Energy. Most people are eating food that is draining them of life force, because it's food that the body has to work overtime to trigger and figure out how to detoxify and change. Working overtime trying to eliminate. So all the nerve energy is being wasted away. That's why people go to sleep and they have more than 6 hours sleep and they're still tired. Or in some cases, maybe more than maybe 7 or 8 hours sleep. Right? How embarrassing. But it's because that person wasn't getting oxygen, because the whole blood supply is all thickened up trying to deal with the fact that it's not getting nutrients. Anything that destroys or diminishes the flow of oxygen to your system is potentially disease-producing and absolutely lowers your nerve energy, period. Anything. Anything that will increase your energy flow is really anything that will increase the flow of oxygen to the cells of your body. So think about it. Anything that's going to interrupt my flow of oxygen, diminish the flow of oxygen, is disease-producing. Anything that will increase the amount of oxygen that gets to my cells is going to make me more healthy and more energized, period. Now, nutrients, by the way, are important because they help to provide the energy so that your ATP can be continually manufactured, continually reconnected in the cell. That's why you got to have nutrients, not just quote-unquote food. And the third thing that all cells need to not only survive but thrive, and this is the thing most people don't do, the ability to eliminate their own waste. What is the process of life? At its basic essence, it's consuming and eliminating. Right? That's basically what all animals do. It's what your cells do. They all consume. They take in nutrients, they take in oxygen, and they spew out and eliminate their waste products. The problem is, what happens if the cell is living in an environment? Where's the environment? Let's say the bloodstream. The blood is delivering these nutrients. The blood is delivering for us this oxygen. But the problem is, what happens if day after day after day, we're constantly putting more poison in, more things the body cannot assimilate, has to eliminate, till the energy of the body gets lowered. Pretty soon you start to accumulate what in the body? Waste, toxicity, toxins. Part of that waste is, watch this right now. Boom! 7 billion liver cells just died. How exciting. But guess what? Boom! Same time, 7 billion new ones were created. Only one problem could come up. If you're living your life in a way where your nerve energy, what most of us would call resistance, is lowered because of the way you're living your life, now there may not be enough energy to eliminate that waste, which is natural waste. The body knows how to eliminate it. And so it's get retained in the blood. Now your blood, day after day, gets more and more toxic. As it gets more and more toxic, to protect you, guess what your body does? Retains more what? Water. In an environment with more water, all these cells that were close together where the blood would flow in, give it its nutrients, now the space expands, and it's harder for the nutrients to get to the cells. Also, with all this water, there's less what getting to the cells? Anybody guess? Oxygen. So you have less what? Energy. As you get less energy, all the cells become weaker. As they get weaker and you have less energy, the functional efficiency of your whole body begins to drop. And pretty soon you go, I'm getting old. What you really are is toxic. And what you want to do is eliminate that waste. So I want you to know about 3 studies that are critical to understanding what it takes to be healthy. How many agree that health is energy, that energy comes from the cells? Let's see if you agree with that. Say aye. If that's really true then, and we know that we need those cells to get us oxygen, then let's look at a little research. The first study here is from Dr. Otto Warburg. Now, here's a guy who won the Nobel Prize for his studies in cell respiration. And he had this theory. He said, okay, there's no question in my mind that oxygen is the single most important nutrient that the human body must have. So I wonder what would happen to cells if I were to lower the level of oxygen available to them. What would really happen? He's one of the first people to ask that question, really test it out. And so what he did was, he got his Nobel Prize because he took these cells, and he took them out of various animals, and he put them in bell jars. And then what he did is he reduced the oxygen level down to about 70%, and in some of them, in the case of 60% of what the animal would normally get. So it took the cells, let's say, for example, out of these rats, stuck it in this bell jar, reduced the oxygen down to it. Now, what do you think happened to the cells? Some of them did die. Many of them weakened. But here's what's really interesting. A large number of them mutated. They mutated because cells need oxygen, and the force of life is so strong. Did you see the movie Jurassic Park? Do you remember there where they said, oh, these dinosaurs, we made them so they can't, have any new dinosaurs? There's that moment where they find the dinosaur eggs. And they go, uh-oh. The force of life is so strong in your body. Most of you fear cancer. What cancer is cells that have not been given enough oxygen. Something has ruptured something has made them go haywire, whether it be chemicals, but usually it's a lack of oxygen. In order to survive, they're not trying to live in an environment with no oxygen because they want you to live. So without oxygen, they go rampant and grow like crazy. They're growing, they're living. But they take over the space in your body, and that's why you see these lumps coming out. They don't belong there. Cancer is your body trying to stay alive in spite of the fact that you have poisoned it continuously. That's what's really happening. Now here's what's really interesting. What he did is he went through this and he said, wow, I drop it down 60% lower. Some of them mutate. That's really fascinating. Mutating cells are what kind of cells? Anybody know? Cancer cells. They start growing rapidly. He started thinking about this and wrote this paper about it. Then his student, years later, Dr. Harry Goldblatt, he's a Rockefeller Institute researcher. He decided to take that same hypothesis and really test it. So he decided to take cells out of these rats. And what he did is he did the same thing, but he did 2 things. He took one bell jar and he put in that rat cells and he reduced the oxygen down to 60% of what they would normally get alive. He took another bell jar, and in this one, he kept the oxygen level at the normal level. Well, the cells that were kept at a normal level of oxygen, same percentage, how do you think they did? Well, guess what he did? He gave them nutrients, and he gave them the same amount of oxygen, and he gave them the room to eliminate the waste. They all lived fine. In fact, they were vibrant. He went to the other ones. What happened? Some died, some weakened, some mutated. He then took the cells back out of the bell jars, re-injected them back in the rats. And the rats from bell jar number 1, the control group, no problem. The rats took the cells back in, went on, continued to have healthy lives. The rats where they took the cells out where there was less oxygen, they injected in the rats. Every single rat developed what? Cancerous tumors. Every single one. What might this tell us about how important oxygen might be in dealing with this scary thing most people think of as cancer? A little important, or maybe the most important thing of all. What would you say? No question. I'll give you another clue. 1 out of 3 Americans gets cancer. 1 out of 7 athletes gets cancer. Why is it that much different? I mean, how could that possibly be? Because they get a lot more what in their system? Oxygen. So you might want to become an athlete quickly. Third study, Dr. Alexis Carrel. This guy's a 2-time Nobel Prize winner, and he did work for the Rockefeller Institute also. And he did some amazing research. He took chickens. Check this out. He took old chickens, and old chicken's like a 12-year-old chicken's an old chicken. Right? That's old in chicken life. You know, I don't know, it's like 7 times that or something. I don't know what it is, but that's an old chicken. He took cells out of chickens, and he took their cells, and he put them in bell jars, and he did the 3 things I just told you that a cell needs. What did he do? He gave it plenty of what? He gave it the what they need, and he made sure that continually the waste products were eliminated. Those 3 things. His goal was, he said, there is no reason for a cell to ever die, and that's why he did the research. He wanted to know what would make it work if you gave it what it needed. Guess what? Chicken 12 years old is about ready to die. How long do you think these chicken cells live? Not forever. They live longer than he did, though. He's dead. The cells got thrown out about 10 years ago. Yeah, they were still alive. Before he died, 3 years before he died, he wrote this research report. His belief was, if you gave the cells what they need, these 3 things, and you avoided physical rupture, what would cause physical rupture? Injury, car accident, smacking something. If you did that, if you gave the cells the oxygen they need, the nutrients they need, eliminated the waste, and you avoided physical rupture, the cells will live forever. Now, this is not some guy from Azusa talking, right? This is a 2-time Nobel Prize winner whose whole focus is cell respiration. And this is something he knows more than anybody you're going to talk to probably about what happens in cells. Now, that's a pretty fascinating thought. So what would be the problem then? The problem is we put our bodies in a position that is unnatural, where we pollute ourselves, and usually as we get older, the pollution builds up more and more and more, and that's what we call aging for the most part. Cells have an unbelievable power. They should not break down. The natural state is to be in a great place. So if cells have all this power, why do they break down? Top of the page, page 9. What causes you to become ill? The answer is simple. The accumulation of toxins in your bloodstream. That's what causes illness, is the accumulation of toxins. Now, why do cells die? Well, cells die, number 1, the most common killer of cells is lack of what? So let's say you have a really fatty diet. You got a high-fat diet, and you're tired all the time, and you feel sick, and you're wondering why. We talked about this yesterday. You got a lot of fat in your system. What happens to the red blood cells? They stick together. If they stick together, they move more fast or more slowly through the bloodstream. Which one? More slowly, which means you get more or less oxygen, which means the cells get stronger or weaker, which means some cells may actually die or... That's why we see all these studies that show high fat intake related to cancer. It all comes down to oxygen. Oxygen, that's your baby. Secondly, what causes cells to die? Any disturbance in the electrical fields of the cells will kill them. Any disturbance in the electrical fields of the cells. Every cell is a biochemical electrical force. If you do something, you put something in your body, there are a lot of non-foods you put in your body, or drugs, that disrupt those cells. The cell membrane is very thin. You break that membrane, all the guts of that cell are going to drain right out, the cell's gone. You do anything, you put too much sodium in your body. There's this thing called a sodium-potassium pump. And the sodium-potassium pump is what creates this electrical energy in your body. And if you disturb that, all of a sudden, you've got a major problem. When someone takes strychnine, Strychnine goes in and it disturbs the electrical fields of the body, and the cell just short circuits, it's dead. That's what it is. Number one thing that will make your cells weak is the very opposite of what most people think, and that is decreased workload makes your cells weaker. Decreased workload, making less demand on your body, makes cells atrophy and weak. Remember I told you yesterday that they're doing these studies at 3 different universities here in the US? They're taking men and women in their 60s and 70s and making an increased what? Demand on the muscle cells of the body. And when they do that, guess what's happening? They're finding they can create the same level of strength in 60 and 70-year-old men and women as they're finding in 20 and 30-year-old men and women. The problem is when we get older, we have these belief systems that say we're going to have less power, less energy, and we become more toxic. So there's plenty of people around us as evidence. And so pretty soon what occurs? Pretty soon we stop moving, we stop using, we stop demanding. The way to get weak in anything is don't challenge yourself anymore. The reason people get fragile in their bones and get older, they don't challenge anymore. The people that are most physical, make the biggest demand, have the greatest strength. Whether it be the muscles, whether it be the mind, whether it be the soul, whether it be human emotions. When you're challenged, you use your courage, it gets bigger by demand. When you don't use it, it gets weak and small. This is the law of life. You don't want to seek out less challenge. You want to make demands on yourselves, but not demands by putting poison in the body, the demands of physical movement, of using your mind and your body in intense ways.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe to our channel,